Speaking of Ohio, let's get to the speaking of Ohio and getting sucked off. Let's talk about Mike Johnson, also known as Mike Cock, which is the other name that I give this border proposal. Democrats are doing what they know best, which is conceding and capitulating like the fucking feckless little cowardly worms they are to white nativist, reactionary immigration policy. That's right. Joe Brandon is hard at work trying to push forward one of the most right-wing reactionary immigration proposals, but from the left, with zero compromise, by the way, to any kind of leftist interest, like no permanence for DACA, no amnesty, nothing. Just straight up, we are doing permanent detention of brown folk everywhere, and I'm going to do it myself as the libtard here. Now, it's really bad. I mean, there's no way to look at the situation and go like, well, hold on, what are we doing here? Dial it back a little bit. Why the fuck is Brandon doing this? Kaya secretly left the room. Hold on, I gotta go deal with that real quick.
Some House Republicans are calling the border deal a non-starter. Can you get it done?
Mr. President, are you doing enough to turn around?
So for more on this, we are joined by CBS News immigration reporter Camilo Montoya Galvez. Camilo, good to see you again. What is holding up the release of this deal?
Good morning, Anne-Marie. Well, immigration law is very complex, so that is one reason. But we're also seeing now some pretty significant divisions within the Republican Party as to whether they should be supporting an immigration compromise, a bipartisan immigration deal with Democrats and President Biden ahead of the 2024 election in November. We obviously remember that Republicans were the ones, Anne-Marie, that tied these two issues together, that demanded a border security deal in exchange for support for additional military aid to Ukraine. But many of them are now saying that this emerging deal does not go far enough and that they want to see more stricter measures passed along the U.S.-Mexico border to deter illegal crossings. And the source of
so many of this is just like fundamentally broken. So much of the story is maddening. Okay. So much of this is frustrating. One, you cannot outcompete Republicans on racism. They will always beat you, okay? The only thing you do when you concede or capitulate to right-wing framing on things such as immigration is that you end up normalizing it. You end up normalizing the concept that immigrants are a burden on this nation, that they are, I guess, poisoning the blood. Because that's where Trump is going to take it to. Trump is always going to push the ante. He's always going to one-up you. And you can never, ever actually outflank the Republicans on racism. And guess what? Immigration as a concept is exclusively cultivated for economic reasons, okay? It's so that there is a permanent underclass of exploitable poor people that are always coming in and getting cycled out by way of the ICE authorities that whenever poultry facilities or whatever want to kick you out of the country because you've demanded back pay, they just get a call and they deport you, and then they go back to fucking rehiring as many undocumented immigrants as possible. If you actually wanted to solve the immigration problem, if it was a problem at all in the way that like Republicans claim it is, you would actually target the businesses that hire immigrants. But they don't do that. And the way that they target immigrants, or the way that they target businesses, is by giving them a slap on the wrist every single time they are caught having hired undocumented immigrants. Okay? So, having said that, this conversation is one that has material reason. Aviva Chomsky wrote an entire book on the history of immigration, specifically talking about the Bracero program. I highly recommend you guys read that. It's very good. It shows the real reasons as to why immigration policy has existed in the United States of America. The white nativist immigration policy has existed. It's a way to basically, you saying Republicans are racist is a racist statement. Yes, I'm racist against Republicans. Anyway, So, as I was saying, this back and forth is propped up, even though it's an economic conversation. The reason why, what? Okay, I got to stop reading the chat. The reason why this conversation has shifted so far to the right in recent years is because mainstream media absolutely also continues along with the capitulation and caving to right-wing framing on the subject matter. Immigration is supposed to be an economic problem, even though it's not a problem at all. However, it has been presented in recent years as a problem of national security. The notion that immigrants are actually a burden, not only on the economy, but also on our law enforcement, that they're criminals somehow, that they're actually doing a lot of crimes left and right, and they're unaccountable, and getting all of these like beautiful government assistance programs, which don't even really exist. All of this is a falsehood. It is just an abject, it's complete lies, okay? Immigrants, according to studies conducted on the matter, and there's some limitations for it, obviously, undocumented immigrants in this country cause less crime per capita than documented immigrants, and certainly less crime per capita than natural-born U.S. citizens. Okay? That's number one. Number two, immigrants are not a burden, undocumented immigrants are not a burden on the American economy. As a matter of fact, they are beneficial to the American economy. That's why they exist in the American economy. Okay? There are no benefits that undocumented immigrants can ever take from the U.S. citizens because there are rarely any benefits at all for even U.S. citizens that are documented. They pay taxes and they get very little in return for all the work that they put in. The solution, given that there is no lump of labor, that this is a fallacy that was correctly identified in like the 18th century. There is no lump of labor fallacy. There is no like actual finite pool of labor and jobs that are available. The real problem isn't that there are constantly people coming into the country. The real problem is that those people that are coming into the country are actually being pushed into a secondary position, a position that is the permanent underclass, a position that can be used against the documented labor pool in the United States of America to depress wages. Okay? That's it. That's it. That's it. The notion that immigrants cause trouble is a lie. The notion that they steal jobs from Americans that deserve it is a lie. Those jobs are always going to be filled and refilled by undocumented immigrants regardless. And the only reason why there is a documented versus undocumented labor pool instead of just like documenting everyone that comes in, for example, is because it is quite beneficial for the American capitalist corporations to keep cycling these permanent underclass people in and out of the country through incredibly violent means so that they can also turn around and use them as a cudgel, as a way to depress wages for the documented labor force. The goal or the solution should be to document all of the undocumented laborers and allow them to join unions. That is how you fix the problem. That's it. Doesn't it benefit neoliberal capitalists more if there's open immigration? How this is a fake brain drain of the global south? Doesn't it benefit? No. If documented laborers are allowed free travel, okay, if they can come into the United States of America and if they can join unions, okay, meaning they get better benefits, they can go back to their own nations of origin with great frequency. They can actually bring money back to their nations of origin. This actually improves their nations of origin and the economic circumstances there. But, and the big but there, is that the way that this process currently works has to stop. The way that this process currently works, unfortunately, is that these guys are not treated as documented laborers and have no way of getting better benefits, getting better wages, have no freedom of travel to begin with. Okay. Yeah. Here's another way that we legally fuck over people. H-2A farm workers should qualify for SNAP EBT because of their extremely low wages, but they do not qualify because of their immigration status. So doesn't that mean they pay income taxes but are shut off of services? Exactly. Exactly. And some of them are unionized, by the way, but it still doesn't matter. So we have a long way to go. Migrant workers are still exploited dramatically due to the currency exchange rate that American capital owners take advantage of and say, hey, guess what? Like, this is still very beneficial for you. All of that, of course, makes the American agricultural production so cheap. Cheap while the American agribusiness cannot survive without the metric ton of federal government assistance, for the record. So that's another thing to also consider. We're pumping money into the agribusiness, and that money is not going down to the actual wage laborers, the actual migrant workers that are basically doing slave labor. Okay? I can tell you most farmhands in Iowa are from Mexico, from an Iowan. I don't understand why Iowans hate immigrants since so much of our economy is based on them. Yeah, I mean, during the Bracero program era, it was actually the Texans that were literally, physically, violently threatening federales for trying to apprehend their Mexican farmhands. So back then, they had a very different attitude towards it. But since then, because we have streamlined the never-ending pool of migration into the United States of America, they actually love when the federales come and fucking kick out the Mexican undocumented immigrants, because there's always a new wave that they can just hire from. And then in Iowa, it goes as far as calling ICE in themselves because the fine was worth the overall revenue. Yes, no, that's what I'm talking about. Oh. Anyway, having said all that, my great-grandpa was killed by Texas Rangers during that era for starting shit with his boss who was abusing a bunch of workers. Flexicans have been in this fight forever. So, I mean, they weren't exactly nice to farmhands back then. No, I didn't mean that they were nice to them, but they were literally more cognizant of the benefits of keeping the farmhands. You know what I mean? Hold on. So, this is kind of starting to sound like chattel slavery. Yeah, wait till you find out how the prison system works, where we already also have slavery. Not chattel slavery, but slavery of a different order. But even though the criminal justice system obviously has a similar lens on black and brown populations that it previously had when they were slave catchers, so it just still ends up churning out similar results. But my point was this. If one party, the Republican Party, is advocating to kill migrants and detain them indefinitely and harm them, and knowing full well that there are still going to be like some that get through that they can still continuously exploit, for example, and usually just kind of using the immigration agenda as a reactionary agenda that like galvanizes the base and creates a base of support, but with no real interest in like legitimately stopping undocumented immigration from coming in, because after all, if that was the case, then our agricultural business would fucking fall apart entirely, right? Why is the Democratic Party not counter messaging against that sort of thing? Well, it goes back to the same centers of power. As I've said, the Democrats are also in the same business as the Republicans are. They are still beholden to the same masters. They are still going to push the same bottom line. So this song and dance, this back and forth, this controlled opposition position that the Democrats are in is great for them overall. Okay? because them cities are complaining too. Yeah, that is also another failure of the federal government. The federal government should have nipped this whole like shipping migrants, this human trafficking process that Governor Greg Abbott and even Ron DeSantis started by engaging in criminal punishments for these pieces of shit. Okay? You get federal assistance specifically to handle immigration processing. If you fucking use that federal assistance in like shipping migrants after giving them a court date, following the actual federal guidelines, offering them a court date, and then fucking flying them out to a different state, you should go to jail. You're doing human trafficking. You're doing kidnapping and you're doing human trafficking. You should go to fucking jail. Okay? I'll wheel your bitch ass to jail myself, Governor Greg Abbott, you fucking piece of shit. Monstrous idiot. So, that's important. That's important to understand. And if you can't fucking do that, then on the other side of the problem, you have to you have to offer federal funds for cities like New York and Chicago that are now dealing with an influx of migrants that are being sent in to these places without any prior knowledge whatsoever. Okay? Give them more funds. Give them more funds so they can deal with the processing themselves. It's fucking ridiculous. Then again, it doesn't seem to be that big of a problem in Chicago, but it certainly is a problem in Illinois. I mean, not Illinois, sorry. It certainly is a problem in New York. Now, do you know why it's not a problem in Illinois, but it's a problem in New York? Perhaps the reason why it is a problem in Chicago, it is not a problem in Chicago, Illinois, but a problem in New York, is because the mayor of New York is a right-wing reactionary piece of shit. Whereas the mayor of Chicago is actually kind of nice with it. And the governor of Illinois is also a big boy that's also kind of nice with it. It is a problem in Chicago that needs more assistance. Johnson has not done well in handling the issue. It's nowhere near as bad as it is in New York, though. Point is, Brandon has been getting hit left and right trying to be a humanitarian with limited resources. Fuck no. Absolutely not. What do you mean he's been trying to help? That's bullshit. The Republicans have done a phenomenal job democratizing the immigration problem by, one, creating an actual problem. And the real problem is a lack of communication, by the way. Oh, you meant Brandon. Oh, fuck. I'm so used to calling Biden Brandon that I thought you were talking about Joseph Robinette Brandon and not Brandon Johnson, the fucking mayor of Chicago. Jesus Christ. Oh my God. I'm so brain broken, dude. I'm so brain broken. I'm way more brain broken than you guys when I say avoid at the top of the hour and you immediately think, oh my God, a 3-minute ad break is coming. Like, that is so bad. It like ruins my life professionally. You know what I mean? Which, by the way, don't ruin this stream professionally. Subscribe for $5 or for free at the top of the hour, and you will no longer see an ad break that is 3 minutes long. That's right. It's coming for you regardless. Unless you subscribe or get gifted a sub. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. I wonder how many of you guys also thought when the chatter said Brandon that we were talking about Joseph Robinette Brandon. And not Brandon Johnson. Anyway. What was I saying? Oh, Eric Adams is a right-wing piece of shit. And also a criminal, so...
that opposition, it seems to be mainly stemming from former President Donald Trump, who has now, as you know, come out against this deal and has been asking Republicans in Congress to not support this. He has not said this explicitly, Anne-Marie.
Yeah, this is another great example that like immigration is simply a political tool for the Republican Party to like deviate slightly from the Democrats. And it's all a fucking lie. How do you figure that out? Well, they are getting a sweetheart deal. This deal, let's say the Republicans said yes to it, okay? And let's say that Biden was able to whip the Democratic Party to actually push this through, right? If the roles were reversed and right now we had a Trump White House that was pushing for this deal, the Democrats would be screaming bloody murder. Every fucking outlet, including CBS News, would be saying, this is Nazi Germany. This is Nazi Germany. You're doing the Holocaust to these migrants. Okay? And guess what? There would be truth to saying it like that, for the record. Okay? And then the Republicans would say, I can't believe you're comparing this to Nazi Germany. How dare you? These are concentration camps, but you can't call them concentration camps, yada, yada, yada. I've seen it. I've done it. I've had this discourse when Trump was the fucking president. Okay? And guess what? Guess what? When Brandon is doing it, and it's the only time Republicans are going to have the opportunity to push a bill like this, Trump doesn't want it passed. Why doesn't Trump want it passed? Is it because the conditions are not severe enough? Fuck you. Get the fuck out of here. These conditions are horrifying. It gives almost entirely the power to shut off immigration completely to the fucking to the executive. That's like a phenomenal misstep that I assume has to be deliberate, because it's not always going to be a fucking Democrat holding the reins. It's going to be Republicans. And when they hold the reins, they're certainly going to be even more violent. So the real reason why Trump doesn't want this to pass is because he doesn't want to give a W to the Brandon regime. Okay? He doesn't want to even like make it seem like, and it doesn't matter what this bill is, by the way. It doesn't matter what any bill is. Passing any bill will be seen as a W for the Biden administration. That's why Republicans run on obstruction across the board. And once they found out that no matter what, they do not get punished for obstruction, it doesn't fucking matter. Okay? That's it. This bill could be the most positive bill. This bill could be giving $1 million to every immigrant. Doesn't matter what's in the bill. What matters is if you pass a bill, that's a dub. There's going to be Americans that think, okay, finally, they're doing something about it. All right? And you can't have that. Even if it is a direct sweetheart deal that the Republicans will never get under any other circumstance other than having a psychopathic, reactionary, brain-broken, senile dipshit in charge who is like haphazardly trying to make a reactionary switch on the fourth quarter so that because he thinks that his like support is hemorrhaging and this will somehow allow them to win the election. Okay? Another reason why immigration has become a problem is because the media has regularly lent itself to right-wing framing on immigration. As I mentioned already, it's not the truth. It's not the truth at all about undocumented immigrants being violent and criminals or whatever. But you see that kind of narrative all the time, including the asylum seekers that like beat the shit out of a cop or whatever. Yeah, that's wrong. Okay? Fucking prosecute them. But the idea that like this somehow is like representative of all undocumented immigrants is so dumb. You know what I mean? You do what you do for anyone that does something like that. It's ridiculous. No, that's good. Fuck the police. Yeah, dude. Okay, come on. What matters is the facts of the matter. Okay? What matters is the facts of the matter. And the facts are that undocumented migrants cause less crime per capita than natural-born U.S. citizens. It's not even a fucking question. Okay? So it's hilariously idiotic that the liberal media does not, yeah, they're going to jail, so people pretending this is all migrants are highlighting it is weird. Yeah. The fact that the media is making it seem as though like the right does have a, the right does have a point on this is so frustrating to me. The Democrats should have been counter messaging against the Republican Party's border strategy for years, and they never did. And now, once again, there's another caravan. There's always a fucking caravan every 4 years. Every 2 years, there's a caravan, and we got to do around-the-clock coverage on that. Oh, my God, there's undocumented migrants coming in. Oh, my God, we are so worried. But watch out, guys. Watch out, it's a crisis. Democrats know that they're going to be using this recycled outrage bait. You're right, Hyrule Blad. So why don't they do anything about it? Because they don't give a shit. That's why. And now Brandon has moved on from not giving a shit to like so not giving a shit that he's going incredibly right-wing on it. But yes, if you're wondering why the Republicans are going to thwart this themselves, I will remind you of a time when Brandon was the vice president. And the Obama administration was looking to restructure Social Security by putting a cap on cost of living adjustments. I believe that was what was going on. It was just going to lower Social Security spending. And we do not have the Democratic Party to thank for that right-wing slant in that circumstance. We have the Republicans to thank for that because they were running their obstructionist attitude and they did not want to be perceived as giving Obama a win, which would have cut Social Security spending. So they are the ones who thwarted it. And the right-wing reactionaries are thwarting this again because they do not want to give Brandon a perceived win. So think about that. That's what America is about, is so fucking right-wing that the far right is actually the ones that are going, this incredibly far-right policy will maybe make Joe Biden look good, so we're just going to push to stop it.
But obviously, any deal that fixes the situation at the border or at least alleviates the conditions there would undermine the opportunities he has to use this issue to criticize President Biden on the campaign trail. Still, there are some Republicans in the Senate who support this deal, and so we could still see the text of this framework very soon.
So that's what I wanted to ask you about. We don't have the exact text, but we do have an idea of some of the elements of what's in this new policy. Based on what we know, how would that change things at the border?
Well, we have been told, Anne-Marie, that this emerging deal will give the president a sweeping power to effectively suspend asylum law. As you know, right now, U.S. law requires officials to screen migrants who say that they are fleeing for their lives, even if they cross the border illegally. But under this deal, we are told the Department of Homeland Security will be granted the power to effectively shut down asylum processing in between official border crossings when the number of people crossing the border illegally reaches a certain level each day. And
5,000.
so those people would not be allowed to ask for asylum and would be quickly returned to Mexico without a court hearing. This deal, we are told, will also instruct officials to try to adjudicate asylum cases fully within 6 months. That's a huge change from the current years-long waits that many asylum seekers face. And we're also told that this deal would preserve asylum processing at official...
Gotta just make the wording confusing and push agenda so the right hates it. What are you talking about? This is an incredibly right-wing... what are we talking about? This is like, dude, this is wordy, right? And Republicans are way more cut and dry, usually. But like, the notion that this is a liberal policy is insane. We're talking about stopping legal asylum seekers in an illegal manner from exercising their legal responsibility and rights to seek asylum in the United States of America. 99% of asylum seekers actually attend their court date, by the way. 99. The Republicans used to lie about it all the time and say they don't actually go and attend their court meetings. They run away. This catch and release, they run away, which was a lie. So Trump then changed the rhetoric. He added a secondary point to it where he would say, they run away. And if they don't, they're stupid. Why wouldn't they run away? When people started calling Trump out for saying they run away, and like Vox articles were written about it, about like how 99% of fucking undocumented migrants actually attend their court cases. Because why the fuck wouldn't they? They want to get asylum. Then he said they're stupid for attending the court case and not running away. Yeah, apologies, chatter. 95% attended, not 99. Sorry. So,
initial ports of entry, and also allow migrants who pass their initial interviews with asylum officers to work in the U.S. legally immediately after passing those screenings. So there are proposals here, Anne-Marie, that will garner opposition from both the left and the right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Camilo, I know you're keeping an eye on it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Anne-Marie.